The manila folder hit Detective Sarah Chen's desk with a sound like a gunshot in the quiet precinct. She looked up from her coffee to find Sheriff Marcus Webb standing over her, his weathered face drawn tight with something she'd never seen there before: fear. "You need to see this," he said. His voice was hoarse like he'd been screaming. "All of it, before you say no." Sarah opened the folder. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Missing persons reports. Newspaper clippings yellowed with age. And a map, hand-drawn, with 97 red X marks scattered across a small area of the Appalachian wilderness. "What am I looking at, Marcus?" "Harlow Creek settlement," he said, pulling up a chair. "Population fluctuates between 150 and 200. Been there since 1847. And in the last 27 years, 97 people have vanished from that town without a trace." Sarah's fingers traced the oldest clipping, 1997. A family of 4. The Hendersons. Vanished overnight. Their cabin found with dinner still on the table, bed still warm. Then 1999. 3 hikers. 2001. An elderly couple. 2003. A young woman named Rebecca Torres. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Every 2 years. Like clockwork. Sometimes one person. Sometimes entire families. Always in October. Always between the full moon and the new. "Why haven't I heard about this?" Sarah asked. Marcus leaned back, his chair creaking. "Because Harlow Creek doesn't officially exist anymore. Not on any modern map. Not in any census since 1960. The people there, they don't leave. They don't talk to outsiders. They don't have internet, phones, nothing. They're ghosts. But you know about it." "My grandfather was from there," Marcus said quietly. "Left in 1955. Never spoke about it. Not once. When he died, I found his journals. Pages and pages about what lives in those mountains, Sarah. About what the settlement feeds." Sarah felt a chill crawl down her spine. "Feeds?" Marcus slid another photograph across the desk. This one was recent, dated 3 weeks ago. A young man, maybe 25, standing outside a weathered general store. He was smiling, but his eyes were wrong. Empty. Like looking into a doll's face. "That's Daniel Webb. My nephew. He went hiking in that area 6 months ago. Sent me this photo with a message. Found a beautiful place. Think I'll stay a while. Haven't heard from him since." "Marcus, I need you to go there," he said. "You're the best investigator we have. FBI background, forensic training, all of it. And you're not from here. You don't have the superstitions we grew up with. You can look at this clearly." Sarah studied the map again. 97 people. 27 years. The math was precise, almost ritualistic. 4 disappearances every 2 years, with only occasional variation. "When's the next window?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "October 23rd to November 6th, Marcus said. "That's next week. If the pattern holds, someone's going to vanish. And I think this time we might be able to stop it. Or at least understand it." Sarah closed the folder. Every instinct told her to refuse, to hand this off to someone else, to let sleeping dogs lie. But she looked at Marcus, a man she'd known for 3 years, a man who'd never shown fear, never backed down, and saw genuine terror in his eyes. "I'll need backup," she said. "No." Marcus's response was immediate. "No one else. The town, they can sense outsiders. My grandfather wrote about it. They can smell intention. If you go in with a team, with weapons, with authority, they'll know. And they'll close ranks. You'll never learn anything. You go alone as a hiker, lost and looking for help. That's the only way. That's insane." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "But it's the truth." Part 2, The Arrival. The trail to Harlow Creek wasn't on any map Sarah could find. She'd spent 3 days researching, and the settlement seemed to exist in a geographical blind spot. A valley tucked so deep into the Appalachian Mountains that even satellite imagery became grainy and distorted over that specific area. Marcus had given her coordinates and a hand-drawn map that looked like it belonged in a fantasy novel. "Follow Widow's Creek upstream for 6 miles, he'd said. "When you reach the split boulder, it looks like a giant cracked it in half. Turn east. Another 2 miles and you'll start seeing signs of habitation. Old signs. Be respectful. Don't take photographs. Don't make demands. Just observe. Now, standing at the split boulder with her backpack digging into her shoulders, Sarah questioned every decision that had led her here. The forest had changed over the last hour. The birdsong had stopped. The air had grown thick, almost syrupy, like breathing through wet cloth. And there was a smell, not quite rot, not quite animal musk, but something in between. Something old. She turned east. The path was barely visible, overgrown with thorns and moss, but it was there. Someone maintained it in their way. Every 100 yards or so, she'd find a marker, a stack of stones, a bent branch, a symbol carved into bark that she didn't recognize. They reminded her of trail markers, but wrong. Inverted. Like they were meant to guide something in rather than guide people out. After 40 minutes of hiking, she found the first cabin. It was small, built from hand-hewn logs dark with age. The roof was slate, miraculously intact. Smoke rose from a chimney made of river stones. Someone was home. Sarah approached slowly, making noise so she wouldn't startle anyone. "Hello," she called out. "I'm sorry to intrude. I'm a hiker and I think I'm lost. Is anyone there?" The door opened. The woman who emerged was ancient, impossibly old, with skin like crumpled paper and eyes milky with cataracts. But she moved with surprising fluidity, her head cocking to one side as she studied Sarah. "Lost?" the old woman repeated. Her voice was dry leaves skittering across stone. "Yes. Many get lost here. Come inside. You'll need shelter. Night comes fast in the hollow." Every instinct screamed at Sarah to refuse, to make an excuse and leave. But this was why she'd come. To understand. To investigate. She followed the old woman inside. The cabin's interior was exactly what she'd expected. Rough furniture, a stone fireplace, dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, the smell of wood smoke and something medicinal. What she hadn't expected was the photographs. They covered one entire wall. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Black and white, sepia-toned, a few in faded color. All of people. Different people, different eras, different clothing. But all of them had the same expression, that empty smile, those hollow eyes. Like the photograph of Daniel Webb. "Your family?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. In a manner of speaking, the old woman said. She was preparing tea, her gnarled hands moving with practiced efficiency. "We're all family here in Harlow Creek. All bound by the same covenant. The same promise." "I'm Sarah," she said, accepting the offered cup. She didn't drink from it. "I know who you are," the old woman said. "You're the detective. Marcus Webb's friend. Come to find his nephew. Come to solve the mystery of the missing people." Sarah's blood went cold. "How did you?" "We know everything that concerns us, child. Every footfall in our forest. Every intention. Every lie." The old woman sat down across from her, those milky eyes somehow boring straight through Sarah's skull. "You want to know about the 97. You want to know where they went. Why they went. If they can be saved. Can they?" "No." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. "Then where are they?" The old woman smiled, and Sarah saw that her teeth were all wrong, too many, too sharp, filed to points. "Where they've always been. Where they'll always be. With the Hollow Man." The old woman's name was Esther Crane, and she'd lived in Harlow Creek for 93 years. She'd been born there. She'd never left. And she had no intention of ever leaving. "You think we're monsters," Esther said, pouring herself more tea. "You think we're killers sacrificing people to some demon. That's not how it is. We're not evil, Detective Chen. We're survivors." "Survivors of what?" "Of the choice." Esther stood, moving to the wall of photographs. Her fingers traced one image, a young woman in 1920s dress, her eyes vacant. "This was my grandmother, Abigail. She was one of the founding families. Back in 1847, when they first settled this valley, they didn't know. They couldn't have known. The land here, it's old. Older than the Cherokee who lived here before. Older than the mastodons. This valley is a thin place, Detective. where the world of the living and the world of something else press close together. Sarah's hand moved instinctively toward her concealed weapon. Esther noticed and laughed, a sound like wind through a graveyard. You can't shoot folklore, child. You can't arrest it. You can't logic it away. The Hollow Man isn't a person. He's a force. A hunger. He's been here since before time had a name, sleeping in the deep places under these mountains. And every 27 years he wakes. Just for a little while. Just long enough to feed. Feed on what? On us. On people. On the warmth and light and life that we carry. Esther turned back to Sarah, and in the firelight, her face seemed to shift, to become younger, then older, then something not quite human at all. In 1847 the Hollow Man woke, and he took 47 people in a single night. 47 souls, consumed entirely. The settlement should have died. The survivors should have fled. But they were stubborn. Proud. They believed they could fight it. They were wrong. So they made a deal. Not a deal. A covenant. The Hollow Man agreed to take less. To feed slowly, gradually, stretched across years instead of days. And in exchange the settlement would provide. Every 2 years, during his waking time, we would give him what he needed. Volunteers mostly. People who were sick, dying, ready to pass. Sometimes we had no choice. Outsiders who stumbled in at the wrong time. People who wouldn't be missed. Sarah's stomach churned. That's murder. That's systematic murder. That's survival, Esther snapped. 97 people in 27 years. Terrible, yes. Horrible, yes. But do you know how many lived in that time? How many children were born? How many lives continued because of that sacrifice? Over 4,000. 4,000 lives saved because 97 were willing to walk into the dark. Daniel Webb didn't volunteer. He was a hiker. He stayed, Esther interrupted. That was his choice. No one forced him. No one held him. He came here and he felt it, the pull of the Hollow Man. Some people do. They hear the whisper in the back of their minds. They feel the call of the void. And they choose to answer. Your friend's nephew chose detective. He walked into the deep places willingly. And he'll walk out again eventually. Changed. Empty. But alive in a fashion. Sarah stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the wooden floor. I'm not listening to this insanity anymore. I'm going to find Daniel Webb and I'm going to bring him home, and then I'm coming back with the authorities. It's too late, Esther said quietly. You felt it the moment you entered the valley, didn't you? The change in the air. The silence. The weight. The Hollow Man is already waking, detective. It's October 24th. His time has begun. And you're here. In his territory. During his feeding. The cabin suddenly felt smaller. Darker. The shadows in the corners seemed to writhe and pulse with a life of their own. You're saying I'm trapped here. I'm saying you're his now. Just like Daniel. Just like the 97 before. Just like the hundreds before them, stretching back to 1847. Esther's smile was sad now, almost pitying. You came here to solve a mystery, Detective Chen. Congratulations. You've solved it. And now you're part of it. Sarah's hand closed around her gun. I'm leaving. Now. Then go. Try. Run as fast as you can. But you'll find that the forest has changed. The paths don't lead out anymore. They only lead deeper. And at the end of every path, in the deep places where the light never reaches, the Hollow Man is waiting. Patient. Eternal. Hungry. Sarah backed toward the door, her gun drawn now, pointed at Esther. The old woman didn't move. Didn't react. Just watched with those terrible milky eyes. One last thing, Esther called as Sarah reached the threshold. When you see him, and you will see him, child, don't look into his face. That's where the others made their mistake. They looked and they understood, and understanding is what hollows you out. Keep your eyes down. Keep moving. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the first to escape. Sarah ran. The forest had changed. Sarah crashed through underbrush that shouldn't have been there, past trees that seemed to have grown in the hours since she'd entered Harlow Creek. The trail she'd followed in was gone, replaced by a maze of identical paths that looped and twisted back on themselves. Her compass spun wildly, never settling on a direction. Her phone, which had no signal but should at least function as a GPS, showed her position jumping erratically across the screen, sometimes placing her miles from where she'd been seconds before. She ran for hours. Or maybe minutes. Time felt wrong here, elastic and slippery. Eventually she burst into a clearing and stopped, gasping for breath. In the center of the clearing stood a church. Weathered. Its steeple pointed at the sky like an accusing finger. Light flickered in the windows, candlelight, warm and inviting. Sarah knew it was a trap. Had to be. But she also knew she was lost, exhausted and rapidly losing her grip on reality. Maybe inside the church she could regroup. Think. Find a way out. The door opened at her touch, swinging inward with a long creak. Inside the church was full. Dozens of people sat in the pews, all facing forward, all perfectly still. Sarah recognized some of them from the photographs in Esther's cabin. Others were more recent. She spotted a young woman in hiking gear, a middle-aged man in a business suit, an elderly couple holding hands. And in the front pew she saw him. Daniel Webb. Daniel? Sarah ran forward, relief flooding through her. Daniel, thank God. Your uncle sent me. We need to get out of here. These people there. Daniel turned to look at her, and Sarah's words died in her throat. His eyes. Those empty, hollow eyes from the photograph. But worse in person. So much worse. They weren't just empty, they were void. Looking into them was like looking into deep space, into the gaps between stars where nothing existed. No light. No warmth. No hope. You shouldn't have come, Daniel said. His voice was his own but flat. Emotionless. It's too late for me. Soon it'll be too late for you too. What did they do to you? They didn't do anything. I chose this. I heard him calling and I answered. I went down into the deep places, Detective Chen. I went down and I met him and he showed me the truth. What truth? Daniel smiled. It was the most horrible thing Sarah had ever seen. That we're all hollow. All of us. We fill ourselves with noise and movement and purpose, but underneath there's nothing. We're just meat and fear waiting to be consumed. The hollow man doesn't create the void. He just reveals it. He shows us what we really are. The other people in the church began to turn one by one. All with those same empty eyes. All with those same hollow smiles. Join us, they said in unison. Go down into the deep places. Meet the hollow man, understand. Sarah backed away, her gun raised. Stay back. All of you just. A hand fell on her shoulder. She spun, finger tightening on the trigger, and found herself staring at Marcus Webb. Except it wasn't Marcus. It couldn't be. Marcus was back in town, waiting for her report. Marcus was safe. Marcus was. I lied to you, not Marcus said. His eyes were the same void as Daniel's. As all the others. I didn't send you here to investigate. I sent you here to join us. The hollow man needs to feed Sarah. Every 2 years. Like clockwork. And this year he chose you. Sarah pulled the trigger. The gun clicked. Empty. When had she fired all her bullets? She couldn't remember. Time was wrong here. Memory was wrong. You felt it when you entered the valley, not Marcus continued. The change. The weight. That was him reaching into your mind. Preparing you. All of this, the investigation, the clues, the trail, I laid it all out for you. Breadcrumbs leading you exactly where you needed to be. Where he needed you to be. No. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. No, you wouldn't. Marcus wouldn't. Marcus Webb died 23 years ago, the thing wearing his face said. He was one of the 97. I've been wearing him ever since, walking around in his memories, doing his job, living his life. Waiting for the right person to send down here. Someone smart enough to find the settlement. Brave enough to enter it. Stubborn enough to stay. The church walls began to shift. To dissolve. Sarah realized with creeping horror that she wasn't in a church at all. She was underground. In a cavern. And all around her, the hollow people pressed close, their empty eyes gleaming in the darkness. It's time, they said together. Time to go deeper. Time to meet him. Time to understand. Sarah ran again. The cavern was a maze of tunnels, all sloping downward. Sarah could hear them behind her, the hollow people walking slowly, methodically, hurting her deeper. They didn't need to rush. There was nowhere to go but down. Her flashlight died, then came back, then died again. The darkness here was alive, pulsing like a heartbeat. She fell more than walked, tumbling down a steep incline, landing hard on cold stone. When she looked up, she was in a vast chamber. The walls were covered in symbols, the same symbols she'd seen carved into trees on the trail. But here they glowed with a faint, sickly luminescence. And they were moving, writhing, like living things. In the center of the chamber stood a figure. It was tall. Too tall. 7 feet, maybe 8, maybe more. Perspective was wrong here, distance was wrong. It wore the shape of a man the way a child might wear their parents' coat, loose, ill-fitting, clearly not quite right. Its skin was pale as bone, and in some places, Sarah could see through it to the darkness underneath. It had no face. Where its face should have been was nothing. Void. The absence of existence. But it saw her. She knew it saw her. Sarah Chen, it said, and its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It came from inside her own skull. Detective. Investigator. Seeker of truth. Welcome. What are you? Sarah managed to ask. I am the space between breaths. The gap between heartbeats. The moment before death when the body knows, but the mind refuses to accept. I am the truth that underlies all your comfortable lies. I am the hollow man. Sarah forced herself to look away from where its face should have been. Esther's warning echoed in her mind, don't look into his face. The people of Harlow Creek, the hollow man continued, moving closer. It didn't walk, it flowed like smoke given form. They think they made a covenant with me. They think they chose this. How sweetly human. How desperately they need to believe they have control. You're saying they didn't choose? I'm saying there was never a choice. I claimed this valley 2,000 years ago. When the first humans wandered into my territory, I allowed them to stay. And I fed. And when they multiplied, I fed more. And when they built their settlement, I fed continually. The covenant they speak of so proudly? That was me teaching them to rationalize their horror. To make peace with being cattle. The hollow people emerged from the tunnels surrounding Sarah. Hundreds of them now. All the missing. All the consumed. Standing silent, witnessing. But you, the hollow man said, and now it was directly before her, towering, impossible. You are special. You came here knowing the danger. You came here armed with knowledge. You came here and you still felt the pull. Do you know what that means? Sarah shook her head. It means you were always hollow. Long before you entered my valley. You were empty, Detective Chen. Searching for meaning in a meaningless world. Trying to solve mysteries because you can't solve yourself. The void was inside you all along. I'm just making it visible. Sarah felt it then, the truth of its words. The weight of every unsolved case. Every victim she'd failed. Every night she'd lain awake wondering if anything she did mattered. The existential dread that had driven her to this profession in the first place, the desperate need to impose order on chaos. The hollow man was right. She'd been empty for years. Yes, it whispered. You see now. You understand. And understanding is all it takes. Look at me, Sarah Chen. Look into my face. See the truth. Her eyes moved upward against her will, toward that absence where a face should be. And in the void she saw nothing. Absolutely nothing. No light. No dark. No existence. Just the raw, primal absence of being. And in that absence she understood. Life was motion. Life was struggle. Life was the desperate, futile attempt to fill the void with meaning. But the void was always there. Always waiting. Always patient. She was going to die here. Not in body, that would be a mercy. She was going to be hollowed out. Emptied. Turned into another vacant shell walking the tunnels, waiting for the next fool to wander in. Unless. The thought came from somewhere deep. Some part of her that wasn't ready to surrender. Marcus's journals. Esther's stories. The pattern of disappearances. She'd been so focused on the when and the how that she'd missed the why. 97 people in 27 years. But 27 years ago there had been a gap. The pattern had broken. For 2 years no one had vanished. Sarah had seen it in the records but dismissed it as incomplete data. What if it wasn't? What happened 27 years ago? Sarah forced the words out through the crushing weight of despair. What broke your pattern? The Hollow Man paused. For the first time it seemed uncertain. Someone escaped, Sarah continued, her mind racing. Someone came down here, met you, felt the void, and they got out. They broke free. That's why you needed Marcus. Why you hollowed him out and sent him back to wear his skin. You needed someone on the outside to make sure no one else escaped. To keep feeding you the right kind of people. Isolated people. People no one would look for. The hollow people stirred, their empty eyes flickering with something that might have been memory. Who was it? Sarah demanded. Who escaped? No one escapes the void, the Hollow Man said, but its voice had changed. There was an edge to it now. Anger. Or fear. Could a void feel fear? Someone did. And you've been afraid ever since. Afraid that if one person can escape, others will follow. That your power only works if people believe in it. If they accept the void as truth. Sarah looked at the hollow people. At Daniel. At not Marcus. At the hundreds of vacant faces. You're not empty, she said to them. You're not void. You're in there trapped, believing his lie. He made you think you were hollow so he could feed on your despair. But despair isn't truth. It's just another lie. Silence, the Hollow Man commanded, and the chamber shook. Stones fell from the ceiling. The symbols on the walls blazed brighter. But Sarah didn't stop. I felt despair. I felt emptiness. Every human has. But we're not defined by our lowest moments. We're defined by what we do next. By the choice to keep moving. To keep fighting. Even when it seems meaningless. Especially when it seems meaningless. She turned to Daniel. Your Uncle Marcus, the real Marcus, he loved you. He never stopped looking for you. That love isn't void. It's real. It matters. You matter. For a moment nothing happened. Then Daniel blinked. Once. Twice. And in his eyes Sarah saw a flicker. Not emptiness. Something else. Recognition. Memory. Pain. Uncle Marcus, he whispered. The first genuine emotion she'd heard from him. The Hollow Man roared, a sound like reality tearing. It reached for Sarah, those impossible arms stretching across the chamber. But she was already moving, grabbing Daniel's hand, pulling him toward the nearest tunnel. Run, she screamed at the other hollow people. All of you. Remember who you were. Remember why you matter. Some did. Not many. But enough. The young woman in hiking gear stumbled forward. The elderly couple clasped hands and followed. A dozen others, maybe 2 dozen, broke from their stupor and ran. The chamber collapsed behind them as they fled upward. The Hollow Man's rage shook the mountain itself. But Sarah kept moving, kept pulling Daniel and the others toward the surface, toward the light, toward the world of the living. They burst from the cave entrance as dawn broke over the Appalachian Mountains. 12 of them in total. 12 out of 97. The others, those too far gone, too deeply hollowed, remained below. Maybe forever. Sarah collapsed on the grass, gasping, feeling the weight of the void slowly lifting. Daniel wept beside her, his eyes clear now, human again, filled with the terrible knowledge of what he'd been. Is it over? He asked. Sarah looked back at the cave. At the darkness that still pulsed within. No, she said. It'll never be over. The Hollow Man is still down there. Still waiting. Still hungry. And Harlow Creek will still feed him. The pattern will continue. Then what did we accomplish? Sarah thought about that. About the 12 people who'd escaped. About the truth she'd uncovered. About the choice she'd made to fight even when fighting seemed futile. We proved he can be resisted, she said finally. That's something. That's enough. Sarah's report was filed and promptly buried. The FBI wasn't interested in folklore and cave systems. Marcus Webb, the false Marcus, disappeared from the sheriff's department the day she returned. His desk was cleared out, his files erased like he'd never existed. The real Marcus Webb's body was found 3 weeks later, in a shallow grave on his property. He'd been dead for 23 years. Daniel Webb recovered, slowly. Therapy helped. Time helped. But Sarah knew he'd never fully heal. None of them would. You don't look into the void and come back unchanged. The 12 survivors scattered. Most changed their names, moved far from Appalachia, tried to forget. A few stayed in touch with Sarah. They formed a kind of support group. People who'd seen the truth and chosen to live anyway. Sarah herself requested a transfer. Took a position in California, as far from those mountains as she could get. But on quiet nights she still felt it. The pull. The whisper. The weight of the void. And she knew that in the deep places under the Appalachian Mountains, in a valley that didn't exist on any map, the Hollow Man was waiting. Patient. Eternal. Hungry. The pattern would continue. Every 2 years. Like clockwork. Harlow Creek would provide. The 97 would become 98, then 99, then 100. But now at least some would resist. Some would escape. Some would prove that the void wasn't truth. That humanity, messy, flawed, desperately finite humanity, mattered. That had to be enough. Because in the end, what else was there? 3 months after Sarah's escape, a new detective joined the precinct that had once employed Marcus Webb. Young. Ambitious. With a fascination for cold cases and unexplained disappearances. On his first day, he found an old manila folder tucked in the back of a filing cabinet. Inside were photographs, missing persons reports, newspaper clippings, and a map, hand-drawn, with 109 red X marks scattered across a small area of the Appalachian wilderness. He studied the map for a long time. Then he smiled, an empty smile with hollow eyes, and picked up the phone to make a call. After all, the Hollow Man was always hungry. And there were always more detectives to send into the dark. The end.